We welcome Don Walker to the studios. Been a while, Don.
Yes, it has been a couple of years, Paul. Thanks for having me in.
Thought we scared you off last time. 3 years to go south of the border, but I'm sure you've been down here on a few trips in the meantime.
Well, 3 years is frequent in my history.
Well, it's been a while since you've actually been, taking a band on the road to do something, at this level.
2006 was the last time we came down and did a meaningful set of dates. At that stage, we had a new album to promote. This time, it's just because a mate of mine got together some dates.
And you've done, a few up in New South Wales and, a few down in Victoria. Is this going to lead to road testing of new material?
Well, there's a lot of new songs in the set, and on Monday we've got a day off in Melbourne on Monday, so we're going into a studio, some friends of ours, and we're just going to put a whole lot of songs down, which we generally do. When we go out and do a little run somewhere, we generally take advantage of the, all rehearsed up band to go in and put down whatever new songs are in the set, and there's a lot at the moment.
Yeah. Is this specifically for potentially a new Don Walker album?
Yes, they all accumulate, and at some stage I sit down, look at it and realise I've got enough for 2 albums here. I'll put together one.
Yeah, because you've only done 2 under your own name so far.
That's right.
And 3 Tex, Don and Charlie's.
2 Tex, Don and Charlie's, and a live one.
And a live one,
Yeah.
and then 2 as Catfish, which I guess were really your
Yes.
solo records anyway.
Yes, yeah. With the close involvement of a couple of guys on the Catfish records. On the Catfish records, they're being released. They've been remastered and partly remixed, and all the artwork redone from the original photo sessions, and they're being re-released in July.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been off the market for quite some time.
A couple of years.
Yeah, because We're All Gonna Die came out recently again too.
Yeah, that was the first cab off the rank in a new program of remastering and re-releasing the old stuff.
Any plans for Freedom?
No, I don't have plans for Freedom. That's out through Origin Records, and that's the way it'll stay for the moment.
So the soundtrack is out there?
Yes, it's out there on CD. It came out in the late 90s.
Okay, well that one snuck out there because, that track with Michael Hutchence, it's somewhat of a lost classic now, isn't it?
I don't know if it's lost, and I don't know that it's a classic. Yeah, I don't know if you can have a classic unless you got a hit.
It was a pretty good song. It was a pretty good song.
Oh, of course, it's a good song.
Just because it wasn't a hit in its day didn't make it, a bad song.
Well, Michael wasn't famous then.
Yes, so, a few years later and, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I never pushed it or anything after he became famous, because he didn't do it because he was going to be famous. He did it because we were doing a fun thing in the studio.
Yeah. Well, you guys were probably a bit ahead of the fame at that point.
Yeah.
So did that whole Chisel in excess thing? It was sort of aligned. You sort of had parallel careers, didn't you?
Their parallel line went a bit further.
Yeah.
But no, we were an earlier generation. They came along when we were like the most famous band in the land. They were a young band playing in a pub up in Paddington when I first saw them, and I think and we were all dragged down to see them by our girlfriends, and I think us and our girlfriends, even then I didn't twig what it was about Michael. That I should have. It's the girlfriends dragging us along to see in excess, but I think we comprised the whole audience. But then, and we thought they were pretty good. Took them out on tour, like some other bands that we did at the time, when we were looking for good acts to kick off a night, and then they went on and became one of the biggest bands in the world.
Mm. Because it seemed to me that and correct me if I'm wrong, but was there a close-knit community with the bands that were around at that point in time? Because you guys were out with INXS. INXS worked closely with Richard Clapton, Jimmy, and was on Richard's record. Everybody seemed to contribute to everyone else's music at the time.
Well, we're all around that year or so. We're all recording in the one studio. We're often doing tours together, so there are many nights you'd be stuck in. We did a New Zealand tour that was a bit infamous amongst the dozen or so of us, where INXS came over and they got introduced to New Zealand. So when you're in little towns late at night and there's not much going on, you do have some fun and you get to know each other.
So you did live the life of a rock star from time to time?
I don't think so. I think myself and the people that I knew lived the life that most people were living our age, and probably people that age still live that life now with just a little bit less pressure on, because we didn't have to get up in the morning for a job.
Mm. We had the opportunity in the last couple of years to put pen to paper, and instead of writing music, write a book, the book Shots, which was that's a real sort of left turn in the career, I guess, wasn't it?
It is, yes. It's the book world, as I've said before, is quite something that I'm unfamiliar with, and prose writing is something that I hadn't done before. But it was, I was just having fun over a few years of writing scraps of bits and pieces that weren't songs, partly in some cases to help with my songwriting. And having a bit of fun on paper, make yourself laugh, which is half the motivation in writing songs. Is to write something that makes you just laugh at yourself.
Did you actually have to go back and research yourself just to sort of recall some of the stories from back in the days you were writing about?
No, there's no research in it. It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be a diary kind. There's nothing in the book along the lines of it's the 17th of May, I woke up, I had this for breakfast. It's not that kind of book. Or then we caught a plane to such and such. It's not a band or necessarily a musician's memoir, and it's not necessarily to carry through the not necessarily's. It's not necessarily all about me. It's more about. I think it's more a portrait of Australia in a certain era, and a portrait of a certain bandwidth of Australia.
Mm. Your sister's quite a well-known author. Did she sort of help you out along the way with this?
She read it before I sent it into an agent, and she made one suggestion which I followed. She made a number of other suggestions, but you don't follow every suggestion from your little sister, do you?
Mm. Yeah. So what'd she advise?
I won't go into that. It was a switching round. She picked out something that was, well into the book and said that's got to be how you open it. Mm. And she was enormously helpful. It's just interesting to have, a writer in your family that you can ring up and say, well, how does this work? How does that work? Otherwise, you go and put your foot in it somewhere.
Mm. It's interesting, like having a writer in the family. There's two writers in the family because you're known for your lyrics.
Well, it's actually three, because my mum put out a book through Penguin last year, and my sister and my mother are currently doing the Sydney Writers' Festival, and they're even going to get on the one stage.
Wow.
At one stage.
Yeah, but you were saying you've just done a Writers' Festival as well, which must have been different for you.
I did a few Writers' Festivals last year in the course of promoting the book. and I've just done what will probably be the last one up in Darwin last weekend.
So no plans for a second book?
I don't have any plans. I'd like to have a shot at more one day because I do enjoy it, get a bit of fun out of the words on the page and the way they come out. But I'd like to have a shot at fiction, but you need an idea, need a good idea. I don't have a good idea at the moment.
What about an autobiography?
No. I mean, shots is the closest I'd get to that. It sort of finishes in 1987, and it's there's a certain small amount of reveal in that, and I wouldn't want to go much further in the reveal than that.
Has the definitive story about your career ever been written though?
Well, no, I don't. My career, I don't think so.
Well,
No,
but there's books about Chisel out there, as you know. So,
well, there are books about Paul Cashmere, and there are some very good ones. Nobody from outside a band that can ever really put down what's going on, because so much of what forms the chemistry of five guys together is forged in the years before anybody knew you existed. So there's five guys basically travelling around there wondering, why are we the only people on the planet who think that we're the best band on the planet? And think, well, I'm being facetious, but in those years where it's really just five guys trying to get on stage each night and figure out how to get a hotel room and stuff like that. Those are the years where the true chemistry in a band is forged, and for somebody who's not there, and nobody is there in those years, you can't really get a handle on the inner workings of a band without having been privy to that.
How's, speaking of then Chisel, obviously there's been a bit of activity happening in the Chisel camp, firstly with John Watson coming in and starting the management of the band, the performance that happened at the racing cars last year, and obviously, an album on the way. Yes,
well, we've talked about doing some more recording. We did a little bit of exploratory new recording at the beginning of March. We just went into a studio for some days and had a muck around with some songs, and some of those are quite good. Everybody's busy at the moment. Jim's going to be busy for the rest of the year on a new solo album. Ian's busy with other things, so I don't know that we'll actually get to it. We might do a little bit of recording later in the year, a couple of songs that were quite promising from what we did in March. But the long-term aim is, I told everybody that I'd like to sit down and write a set of songs for a new Paul Cashmere album, and that's what I'll be doing in my spare time this year, along with other writing.
So have some of those songs already been written if you were in the studio a few months back?
I think so, but there's we didn't get time to do more than a dozen songs, and so there's still a lot in each case. There's a lot that I've written that the other guys haven't seen, and while I might think that something might be suitable for Paul Cashmere, you can never tell that until the other guys hear it.
Do you write specifically for Don Walker in mind, or do you write for a Chisel song for Chisel, a Text on Charlie for Text on Charlie?
I don't do any of those things. I just write, and when a project comes along, I look at what's sitting over there on the bench, and I think, well, they might like this one, or they might like that one.
You've got some of the greatest songs ever written in Australia. Do you have a particular favourite of your own? I know it's a very difficult question that you must get asked often, but just because top of mind I can think of all these great Don Walker songs out there. Surely people are fans of your music. You must be fans of some of the songs as well.
My favourites are probably recordable, but certainly not releasable.
Yeah. What about, like if a song becomes a hit, does that make it any more special to you?
Well, it depends. By and large, my favourites have not become hits, but there are definitely exceptions to that. I really like What Happened with Looking Forward, Looking Back that Slim Dusty did, and that was a hit, but it's also a favourite song.
Working with Slim must have been an exciting time as well.
Yeah, Slim was good to work with and very good to know to the limited extent that I knew him.
You've dabbled with a few country artists over the time, Troy Cassar-Daley as well.
Yes, Troy and I have done. We did a lot of writing together from the late '90s up until a few years ago. We haven't sort of intersected much the last couple of years, but I just got an email from him this morning, out of the blue, that he wants me to send him the lyrics of a song that we wrote a long time ago called HQ 454 Munro. That's a song in worshipping a particular car, and I've been doing that in my set for a number of years, and it'll definitely be on whatever I put out next. But Troy's, I haven't spoken to him yet, but he's clearly interested in it again too.
So it might be on one of his records in the future as well.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Troy does good record.
He certainly does.
Yeah.
How do you go about putting a set list together now?
There's a lot to choose from, and I put it together of my favourite songs that paint a certain picture, not necessarily of myself, but like the book, paint a certain picture of this place at a certain level of where I come from, I guess, which is rural, not squattocracy.
Is it a mix of the solo Don Walker, the Catfish Don Walker, the Tex Don and Charlie Don Walker, and Chisel?
Yeah, it's a mix of all of those. I've been doing the last year or two. I've been doing K-Sound on stage, which I never did before, and I do a couple of ones that were on Tex Don and Charlie records, and some Catfish ones and some from the solo albums, and a lot of new ones.
What do you do with K-Sound? That must be interesting, considering that was probably the first song we ever got to know you for.
I just sit down, play it on the piano, and sing it.
Yeah. Jimmy style?
No.
I'm just trying to picture Don Walker belting it out.
No. No, it's different. It's a different approach.
Is Tex Don and Charlie unfinished business?
I think Tex Don and Charlie will always be unfinished business, but Tex Don and Charlie is not a it's a side thing for all of us. So it doesn't really happen unless all of us happen to be at a loose end in the 1 year, and that's why. And then we go, let's go and do that. But and I think we'll do another record. I couldn't say when it will happen. When it happens, I'll enjoy it. But for the moment, Tex is busy for a little while on the Johnny Cash thing, and Charlie's been flat out doing the Morris Frawley tribute album with Paul Kelly.
Wow, so there's quite a few projects on the way then. So over the course of the next 18 months, 2 years, we'll be seeing some multiple new Don Walker music.
Well, I'll put out an album next year. I would say we'll sort of plan towards maybe doing some Cold Chisel recording. That can always, Cold Chisel being Cold Chisel, that can always go on ice for a few years. But I mean, officially, as I keep telling people, cultures broke up in 1983. But and a Textile and Charlie album, I couldn't see that happening for a few years. But if Tex and Charlie rang me up, I mean, 2 years ago, Tex said at a party, we've got to do another record and not wait for another 11 years. Yeah, all right. But then you don't hear about it again for a few years. But if they rang me up, yeah, I'd be in that like a flash, as I'm sure the other guys would if they weren't busy.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've got a lot going. So good to get you in here. Don Walker,